Now this next car is a pretty rare vet. It's a 64 327 365 horse convertible. But what really makes this car interesting is the history behind it.
64 Corvette's a 327 365 horse, which that's the same engine as a fuel-injected car, except it didn't have injection. It's just got solid lifters, all the good components inside. Car's got 27,000 actual miles. It's what people call in the classic car business a survivor.
Roger McCreeless, co-owner of the Glenn Smith Automotive Group, purchased this stunning low-mileage 64 convertible in the early 1990s. After the purchase, he came across the name of the original owner of the car and decided to make an attempt to contact him.
The car had a lot of documentation with it, and got to looking, and I found the guy's name that had bought it new. The car was so new up in Virginia, but he had since the last address I found had moved to Florida. So I thought, well, it'd be kind of neat to talk to this guy and kind of ask him about the car. So I wrote him a letter in 1993.
But as the years went by and McCreeless didn't get a return letter or call from the previous owner,
I just said, well, probably was an older gentleman that moved to South Florida like a lot of people do from up north, and he passed away. So kind of forgot about all that.
Then, totally out of the blue, more than a decade later,
got a call at work, and it was a guy from South Florida, and it was the man that had bought the car new. He had just received a letter that I had written him 13 years ago. Don't know what happened to it, but he said it was all yellow, but it just thrilled him to death to hear about his car, because you could tell that he was very passionate about that car.
After spending more than an hour on the phone with the original owner, Roger learned the car had a very interesting history.
He belonged to the National Corvette Restore Society, so one year they had a big event somewhere in Central Florida around Sebring. So one of the guest speakers there was going to be Arthur Duntov, which, if you're an old hardcore Chevrolet person, he was the guy that actually was behind performance at Chevrolet and really got Chevrolet moving where they're moving. But anyway, he found out where Mr. Duntov and his wife were staying, so he gets up the next morning and finds out they have ordered breakfast in the room, so he pays off the waiter, and he takes them breakfast in the room. Well, he tells Mr. Duntov all the trouble he's gone through just to meet him, and he was so impressed with that Mr. Duntov let him stay with him all day long. They actually took this car out to the Sebring track, and Mr. Duntov drove this car, and they raced some other cars, and he said they just blew them all away.
Roger also noticed that the car came with 6 taillights, rather odd because these cars came with only 4.
He said, I bet you want to know about the 6 taillights. And I said, yeah, tell me about that. So he said, well, Larry Shinoda is a good friend of mine, and he told me that when they were designing this car, he had intended it to have 6 taillights because of the history of the Chevrolet, the 58 Impalas and the 60s all had the 3 taillights, 61s, and so it was originally intended to have the 6 taillights, and so Mr. Spivey, who bought my car, knew, he said, well, I'm going to add that to it. My car's going to have that. So he added that to it. It's a little bit different.
Even though it's a low mileage car, Roger still takes it out for an occasional spin.
I don't get it out in the rain, but I live in Opelika, and if I want to run over to Auburn or something like that, or go out to eat, we jump in the car and let the top down and we take off.